It's the only thing that people around the Coliseum, around the Olympic Games are talking about, have been talking about all day long. Decker and Bud and Decker, the incident last night. Marty LaCour, you've had 24 hours to think about it. You've examined the tapes over and over now. What's your opinion of the incident?
Well, I felt uneasy with my call as I left here last night, and I got up early and watched a lot of videotape, watched it in slow motion, and I really have to say that my initial call was wrong, and I was joined by the two field judges on the field who also initially said that Zola Budd had caused the foul. But in looking at the tape, we'll look at it from a couple of different angles and see really who was to blame here. Now, Zola Budd had just taken the lead, and we'll see it in real time, real motion, and it's very hard to see here. Last night, I thought that Zola had just taken the lead and was cutting in on Mary. You'll see Mary tick her Zola's heel once, then she'll come back, tick her heel again, and then it's all over in the bat of an eye. Mary's down. She can't get back up. But what really happened was it as simple as we thought last night. Had Zola Budd just moved in on Mary Decker without sufficient lead, or had perhaps Mary tried to pass her back on the inside? We'll get to see it here. What happened first, Mary ticked Zola's heel, and then again Zola's foot came up after she had regained her balance, and Mary's thigh brushed it, and this time Zola wasn't able to recover. Mary came right down on Zola's foot and was out of it. Now, we're going to look at it from a different angle, which was actually the angle from behind that Berkey of Switzerland had, and it was her opinion that Mary was trying to pass back on the inside. Here we are going to get a perfect shot of Mary's right thigh grazing Zola Budd's foot as Zola Budd's foot comes up for the back kick. This was the initial contact, and Mary stayed in her position, Zola stayed in her position, and therefore it happened again. This little grazing knocks the 84-pound Zola Budd off balance. She can't recover. Her foot comes over into Mary's lane, and there you see at the bottom of the screen Mary's foot just stepping on it. Now, one thing you have to keep in mind, I said last night that you have to have a full stride length ahead. Mary has repeated that in her press conferences, but that's really a rule of thumb. It's something that all track coaches teach their young runners. Be a stride ahead before you cut in, but it's not as clear-cut as that. The rules only say that you have to not impede any other runners. There is no mention of how far ahead that you have to be in, and I think this is the crucial thing in examining whether Zola was guilty of cutting in too soon. Now here we'll see it a couple of times and see what a struggle Zola Budd had to try and stay upright, because she was clipped from behind more than once. Some of the runners sitting in the stands are of the opinion that if Zola was in front, she is almost powerless. She can't see what's going on from behind her, and just about any time you're clipped from behind, it's the person doing the clipping who is at fault. However, the other side of that coin is, did she move in too soon? So now we have to go back to the fact, had Zola Budd established the fact that she was in the lead for some yards before the bumping started to take place. We're picking it up now with 200 meters to go. Zola on Mary's shoulder. Mary has led the entire race up to this point. We will see Zola take the lead in the middle of the turn and establish a lead. Now, certainly Zola will be crowding Mary, and perhaps she could have moved out farther, but it was nothing unusual in the amount of running room that she was giving Mary. At that point, when Zola gets in front of Mary and Mary feels crowded, she had three options. She could yell an international curse word, she could touch her on the hips or the shoulder just to let her know she was there, or Mary could have slowed down and let Budd take the lead and dropped in behind her. But Mary did not give up the lead. She kept running to maintain her position, which is Mary's prerogative. She doesn't have to give the lead up. So at this point, you'd have to say they ran for 30 yards or so, and Zola Budd had definitely established that she was now the leader. And here's where the problem starts. Mary clips her from behind once. She doesn't back off. Zola regains it, and here's where Zola was out, tried to move back into the pole again, and now she really gets clobbered by Mary. Mary, not wanting to come down real hard on Zola, I think dove for the inside for refuge.
All right, you've changed, but when you say you've changed, do you mean now that Budd is entirely innocent in this situation, that Budd deserved to be where she was and that Mary was in the wrong?
No, I think that what I feel is that Zola Budd was jumped on immediately because it was her first international race, and she was involved in an incident, so everyone jumped to the conclusion that it was her inexperience. On looking at the tapes, I think it was a close race. They were both very close to each other, but both runners could have done things to avoid it. Both runners are not blameless, but neither of them is guilty.
On the subject of experience, and so much has been made about Bud's inexperience in international competition, what about Decker's relative inexperience running in a pack? We saw her in the Olympic trials in the 3,000 meters. She ran by herself, and everybody else ran in a pack, and nobody even came close. Mary has not run in the pack very often. Do you think that made a difference last night?
Well, it's easy to second guess, but Mary spent a number of years now going right out, being 30 and 40 feet ahead of the field. You can't condemn her for that. She's a great athlete, but she hasn't been in there trading elbows with the Americans, so her excellence, in a way, has come back to haunt her. She perhaps could have been feeling more comfortable if she had had more races like that. In Helsinki last year, she got out in front, and no one ever got near her really until the last 50 meters. So, you know, that's second guessing. The point, I think, here is that Zola has taken a lot of heat. It's something that happens in international racing. There's no one in the stadium who has seen it in slow motion that would think that it was intentional, and I just think it got a little bit overblown, and I feel that I'm somewhat to blame because in seeing it in fast motion the first time and only seeing the last 5 feet, I thought that Zola Budd had moved in, but I don't think so now.
Reminds me of a lot of the calls we see in football. Is it the wide receiver or the defensive back that's guilty? Always the flag is thrown. It's one or the other. In any event, we do have an answer to a great trivia question, because what will be forever known as the Decker-Budd confrontation, people will forget who won the race. Her name was Maricica Puica of Romania.